Warning: there is potential for strong language that may offend or not be suitable for all ears. Whenever you're ready.
Whenever you're ready.
I am ready.
You're never ready.
I'm always ready.
We're always ready!
I'm wearing the shirt!
I'm wearing a shirt.
I'm wearing the shirt.
What's that? You need a bigger weed? And welcome to Infinite Minds Radio, which you can find Matt cupping his boobs with. Today's episode, I don't know. I've lost my mind. How about you, Matthew?
I always have lost my mind, and I think my mind's chasing your mind around.
I don't like that.
It's a freaky thought, but if they ever find each other, we may be okay.
But, in other news, once again, look at Matt's chest. Isn't that glorious? Would you guys like that? I would. I should have one. And also we have mugs. Or he has mugs. One of which is mine, which I don't have yet.
I didn't get to mail it to you yet, which, after the episode, I need your address again.
You hear this, people? He doesn't even know where I live.
I know where... I can drive there. I just can't mail crap there. Hey.
No.
When it comes to driving, I got a photographic memory.
No.
Yes.
Matthew, you have a peanut butter memory.
I do have another lump. I need to go get these checked out.
Just stop eating peanut butter.
I pretty much have, except on ice cream. The scary thing is, my children demand spoons of peanut butter now.
So, basically, it's like feeding your dogs pills, except you're feeding your kids pills. Are you drugging your children, Matt?
No. I have to drug myself.
So you have to trick yourself with peanut butter. Matthew,
Okay.
What's on our agenda for today?
I have two things. One kind of goes with the first one. It's also a few months old. I did
One
not
goes
realize
with the
this.
first one. I'm pretty sure we're still at number one here, Matt.
I know. Shut up. So,
Number one.
with school starting up again here shortly, something's been on my mind, especially since I've definitely confined to the part that I should have been a music major and not all the other majors that I've attempted.
Don't be a music major. I did it. It's a bad choice.
I know you did. You did performing instead of education, so...
Well, no, I did education instead of performing, and that was where I went wrong.
Did you ever even take your tests to become a music teacher?
No, because they knew I didn't want to teach, so they gave me a hard time with that. So I ended up not teaching for that very reason, because I wanted to perform. That's something that I don't even want to get into.
Well, we're kind of going to get into it.
Oh, great. This is exactly what Matt loves to do. He loves to fuck me without taking me to dinner first.
I've taken him to dinner twice now. Actually, it was lunch and dinner. Anyways.
Still fucked me beforehand.
So, going on right now in a lot of school districts across the country is budget constraints.
Which is something we've seen a lot. And this is also one of the many other reasons why I decided I did not want to teach, because the first thing to go is the arts, and a lot of time band.
Which is where we're kind of going with this, is that you see a lot of the times that they start to cut out the arts programs in schools, but they're still funding sports.
Oh, yeah, no, and that's the other major thing is you'll see football teams that consistently underperform will still get more equipment, better stadiums, better everything, but you'll see where the bands, especially in cases like my high school, we were competing marching bands. Yes, there is competing marching bands for you people out there that don't know that, and actually, it's pretty competitive. And
to the point where there's even professional competing bands.
Yes, and we used to win a lot of the competitions. We used to come home with all kinds of awards, and for a long time, and I'll say this, my high school definitely, the football team did get better over the years. However, for a very long time, they weren't a very good football team, yet they were consistently getting all the new equipment. They got everything, and they got to kick us off the field whenever they wanted to do something. Yet we were the ones coming back with first place awards. Like, we went to the Atlantic Coast Championships. So you get basically the whole eastern half of the U.S., or not eastern half, but Eastern. I think it was something like the Eastern Time Zone, the northern part of it was all there. Then we switched to a different, I guess you would call it, league, and we then scored the highest we ever did in competition my senior year, and it was all at Giants Stadium. So we got to go to Giants Stadium and perform, and it was awesome. But shortly thereafter, the band director was pretty much pushed out of his position. The band's funding went down significantly, and there is, to my knowledge, the high school has not had. I believe they still have the band, but I don't think they've competed in years, and they definitely aren't anything what they were previously.
Yeah, I know. The two competitions that I'm coming up, the groups for our side of the state, were PIMBA and BOA. I know that.
You mean TOB or band?
TOB, yeah. Well, there was BOA as well. BOA was national, though. Like, that's nationally wide. Bands of America. I know that when I was in high school, our band was 60-plus members all 4 years. I just saw a picture of the current band, and I think there's, like, maybe 15, 20 people.
And this is something that I don't mean to cut you off there, but that's something I've seen happen with a ton of bands around here. And this used to be a pretty band-heavy area, because your high school used to compete with mine.
Yep.
And this used to be...
When I was in high school, we were competing against everybody south of, what was it, Interstate 80? And it's just, I've seen multiple reasons why bands seem to be, I mean, on the other side, the drum corps are still, like, I don't even know how they're still going with the lack of interest in the current school districts. But I mean, drum corps, one of the kids I went through high school with, he's a band teacher at Homer City, and they have the cadets there right now for the Baldwin DCI show, and he was saying that it's probably going to be one of their best years in a while. He's never seen a stronger group before. The one thing there's been a few things that I've seen that seem to be like the downside uh, to the bands is that you have you're stereotyping through schools. You have your certain cliques, and a lot of people don't want to be that band geek. Newsflash: my freshman year, we had 3 football players in our marching band. They would march with us in halftime in their football uniform, so it wasn't like they were hiding it. I mean, it's not something that you like. Yeah, you may get made fun of, but if you like doing it, do it. A lot of I know this issue was with my school district. A lot of the issues was there wasn't there was some animosity between the middle school and the high school teachers for a while, and for those of you who are watching that may not have the same setup as we do, because I know there's multiple ways that states set up their school districts. We had our middle school, which was 6th to 8th grade, and then our high school, which was 9th to 12th grade. Your middle school is supposed to push to get the interest there so that when the kids get to high school, they want to do it. And a lot of high schools allow 8th graders to actually march with the band.
That was the case in my high school, where we did have some of those kids who were coming in, and they were able to join the band early if they showed that they could.
Yeah, and we had a few the last few years I was there. They'd made a good push about getting people there, but it seems that because of budget constraints, they're not really pushing music at the lower levels anymore, so you're not getting the interest there. And as the kids get older and the music starts coming in more as a personal development type thing, like the music you listen to is starting to define who you are. A lot of the people that want to be in band or should have been in band, it's way late for them because they don't know how to play. They don't have the interest there. They're in a group that if they started to go to band, they're no longer in that group because that group's going to completely shun them. I mean, we had issues at one point with coaches where coaches were threatening to kick people off of the team because they were practicing 4 or 5 times a day, or not a day, but a week. And the band would practice once or twice a week, have Friday night football games, and then maybe a competition on Saturdays. And the coach was threatening to kick them off because they were asking for at least one of the practice days off from the sport to be at band practice. And then, so like the coaches were pushing for them not to be there. You have other students pushing them not to be there. And then you have teachers that really aren't reinforcing a lot of people, they sing in the shower. A lot of schools have swim classes. A lot of students shower. I know a lot of times we had people singing in the shower as guys. And they weren't in chorus, but yet they were phenomenal singers. It's like, why aren't you in chorus?
Well, there's also, and this is coming from someone who is a professional musician who's done, I've moved out to LA, I've done the whole thing. And there's a huge stigma on being a musician in general. A lot of people treat it as, you're a slacker because you just want to go have fun. You just want to go party. You want to look for an excuse not to do something. A lot of people have this image of what being a musician is. And once again, it doesn't necessarily have to be at a professional level. You don't have to pursue music as a professional necessarily. But here's the thing. A lot of people don't realize it is something that you can dedicate yourself to. It's something that is good to enrich yourself. but because there is such a specific stigma on being a musician that, you know, you're a nerd, or, you know, if you look into rock music, then you must be a druggie, or you must be a stoner, or you must be, it's, people are so quick to throw these flags and these labels on what it is, that a lot of people don't get to just be who they are whenever it comes to music. And like you're saying here, it's so many people are placing this stigma on being a musician, and it really does not do well for younger crowds, because it's pushing people away from it. And parents especially are so negative with it. And I mean, there definitely are supportive parents out there, and the kids that you see out there with supportive parents, like, I commend those parents. They're doing a great thing by, you know, they don't have to push, you know, tell them expect to do something great. They can just, you know, see that their kid enjoys playing music, and that it's going to be a hobby for them for the rest of their life. That's great. It's just, so many parents need to stop putting this stigma on it. It doesn't help that it starts to permeate, because then you teach your kids that there's the stigma, and then it just carries on. And then you have the parents on the school boards that are, so, you know, they're pushing because they don't want the kids, they don't want their kids involved in that. So it's just, you know, the American dream. Let's go America football.
Yeah.
And you know what? I'm all for it. You know, everyone should have their own thing. I'm not saying that football should be removed. Like, football isn't the enemy here. It's just commonly what everyone moves towards with this, because it whenever you get into the band debate, this is what you see a lot, because it's almost always, whenever it comes to school districts, it's almost always football team funding versus marching band funding. You see it all the time. There's probably a lot of school districts that's not the case, but in our area, that's something we see a lot. And it's something I saw a lot with people that that did go and teach. I mean, I went to school to teach. I decided not to teach. A lot of people wanted to teach and went and did that. And a lot of them have, run into their own troubles with this kind of stuff. It's something that is a problem for people in their career. It's a problem for kids that they don't get to be themselves. And it's just a shame that you see so many people take something that really is so good for you. And that's the other thing that just blows my mind, is there's such a hard stigma on being a musician whenever it's shown that it really makes people a better student. It makes you whenever I say enriches you, there's so much good that can come from learning an instrument. You don't have, and like I said, it doesn't have to be a career. It doesn't, like, very few kids who are band kids necessarily go and pursue it their whole lives, but a lot of them carry it on as a hobby. There's nothing wrong with it.
In my opinion, if you're a swimmer, you should definitely pick up a brass instrument, because your breathing with an instrument definitely helps with swimming.
Lung capacity there's so many analogs that cross over to different skills. There's just so many different skills, like learning music theory, learning to compose. A lot of it crosses over in numbers and ratios. So a lot of kids who may struggle with math, if you start to teach them about time signatures, they start to learn how the ratios work. It's stuff like that it's easier to understand whenever you bring it into something that's more common in understanding. I mean, it's just to me, it's a shame that so much has been just kind of dumped on music, and it doesn't help either that popular music right now doesn't really speak for what music is, and that's a whole different subject to get into.
Oh, yes, it is. Yes, it is.
But I think a lot of people seem to just neglect it, and I mean, for every person that we're saying that, this is news to someone, there's also a ton of them that are going to sit there and say, "So you're telling me nothing new?" But I want to get that word out to some people that maybe you have a kid, maybe you're worried about them like obsessing about music and wanting to become a rock star. That's not a reason to keep your kid away from playing in marching bands.
No, I mean, if anything, you should encourage them and teach them the correct way. Like, yes, drugs are bad, but I mean, a lot of what.
Well, here's something I want to point out. You went, like I said, be a rock star, and you just went straight to.
Well, that's what
drugs are bad.
90. Okay? This is probably way out there, but probably 90% of our population. If you say a rock star, the first thing that comes to mind with their culture is drugs.
And you see, that's disappointing. And you know what, though, I also know where that's what goes on out in LA. I've seen it firsthand. That's what a lot of people think being a rock star is. Well, and you know what? That's not what it. That's not what they see
is current people like Justin Bieber or Lindsay Lohan and like all these big name people that are out there that are doing drugs and getting away. Like, they get a slap on the wrist and they're like, "Don't do it again." And so now they're like, "Oh, I want to be Justin Bieber. I'm going to go sing and I'm going to do drugs and get away with it." And it's like, no. Hey, that's a whole different conversation, though.
Once again, derailing.
Always derailing.
My point stands, though.
That is what happens here. That's why we are infinite minds.
This stigma is exactly... But you helped prove a very good point here, though. You think these things, and that's not what it is. Like, people see a guitar, and they either think you're a drug addict, or you're just you never think, oh well, this could be a really talented musician. And that's actually another thing that drives me insane. As a guitarist, people see me with long hair and they think they have no idea what I can do on my instrument. I practice classical violin pieces on my guitar.
He does. He also practices for hours on end until his fingers bleed.
I've actually never had my fingers bleed, but
that is a lie. That is a lie.
Not from normal playing. I've cut my hands on sharp strings on the headstock, but that, once again, this is sidetracking the point.
I have seen you in college with every single finger covered in a Band-Aid because you played until they were bleeding.
It's possible. Anyway, this is the thing, though. It's I play rock music, but that doesn't mean you can't be a genuine
Normal.
musician. You can't take being a musician seriously. It's not just all punk rock. We're going to play 3 chords. You can actually be a great musician on any instrument. You just
Have to practice.
you have to practice and you have to take yourself seriously. But what's upsetting is, once again, it's this stigma that people place. They see a rock guitarist and they assume, well, he probably doesn't know classical music. He wouldn't understand anything about Bach, Beethoven. Meanwhile, I dare someone to look up Paganini. Look up Paganini. And Paganini.
It sounds familiar.
He's a violinist. He's one of the most renowned.
I think I have a CD with him on it.
Walked. That kind of stuff. That's the kind of stuff I love to try and learn. I love to try and play these things. There's so many other guitarists out there like that. Things like that, you have to understand that there needs to be a breakdown of this stereotyping of everything you know about music. And I just urge everyone to take a step back. Think about what you think whenever you see a musician, whenever you see, and just step back and think about what really is going on there and what they are as a person. Don't just look at them and put them into that same stereotype that the record industry has caused in the first place. The record industry has done nothing but wreck music lately.
Yep.
And it goes to show you, and I mean, not to, like, I'm derailing us a little bit, but if you look at recently, there's been two major deaths of rock stars. So you have Chester Bennington from Linkin Park, who committed suicide, and you have brain not work. Chris Cornell. Did I get it right? Yeah. These two major suicides, and instantly everyone said, "Oh, they were drugged out of their mind. They were this and that," and to me, that's a big upset too, because as a musician who also deals with depression, clinical depression, a lot of people want to sit there and assume that, oh, they're on drugs, and yeah, they may have had drugs in the past. That's, they're some of them, like I know Chester had like an issue in the past, but it's so upsetting that people have stereotyped them into this point that that's all they are. They did drugs. They were rock stars. They killed themselves, and like immediately everyone was on the internet like, oh, they OD'd. Oh, they did this, and that's not. It's not the case. It's really bad what people do with this, and that I would say that contributes to this stuff. I'm not saying that necessarily that's why they ended up like this, but this stereotyping, it's just so toxic and corrosive to people who really deserve better than that are much bigger. There's more to them than just they're a rock star or they're this or that. You don't know them as a person, so why put that stigma on them whenever you don't really know what was going on in their life? I think you see this go through every step of it. It doesn't matter. Like you see people who are miserable because they can't, like Matt said, they can't be themselves. They sing in the shower because they're too afraid to be called something because they don't want to join choir.
I mean, heck, I didn't... When I was in 5th grade, I was supposed to try out for chorus. Was it 5th grade? No, it was 6th or 7th. It was for honors choir. And I was supposed to try out, but I got bullied because people found out I was going to try out. And the music teacher knew that I was going to try out. She called my mom. She's like, hey, thought I saw Matt in school today. Do you know what's going on? He didn't come down for tryouts. Well, him. And she was like, no, he should have. And they came down, and the principal came down and pulled me out, took me down, and had me try out. And, like, after I had tried out, some of the kids that were bullying me were there in the chorus. And it's like, you don't just get it from outside, you get it from inside.
And
but once I was put into the position by people that actually cared as to what was going on with me, that I tried out and I made it, that I felt better about myself, because it was like, oh, hey, I am able to do this. I mean, that was probably some of the best times of my life, was chorus, marching band. I mean, I did marching band in college. That a certain scenario we won't talk about was not that great. But I mean, even with it not being a competition marching band, I still had decent fun. Our football team sucked greatly. I mean, when you lose 30 straight games.
But once
and
again,
they hire a new coach.
That's neither here nor there.
4 times the income, because he's supposed to bring... He's supposed to change the football team around, and you lose another 12 straight games. Anyways, I mean, they were fun times. I mean, it's kind of like different. It's like you have all these different clubs through high school and college. You have Boy Scouts, you have Girl Scouts, you have marching band. Like, you have all these different groups of things, and they all give you something different. They all offer you something different. I mean, with marching band, I got to go back scenes in Orlando at Disney World.
That was something I got to do too.
Yeah, that's
pretty awesome.
You don't get to do that on a normal trip, and you're back there meeting people who have been in Disney movies, who have been part of the orchestra for the music. Like, you're meeting all these people, and you're like, holy crap! And you're like 14 years old. That is awesome. I mean,
there's a lot of opportunities that a lot of people don't realize you get just by being in it. I know my good friend's sister got to sing with Foreigner, you know, like the 80s band,
well,
like Final Countdown Foreigner. But that's like,
is it Durst? The singer.
The singer for, well, Fred Durst was Limp Bizkit.
He was, yeah. I met his wife. I've met his wife.
I mean, well, let's not. I mean, on a performance level. I think that's
but I mean, it just popped in my mind that like, I've met his wife. I actually worked for her.
I met a good couple of people. There's a story where I met Lemmy Kilmister's tech, and I made a friend with him whenever I was hanging out at the Rainbow Bar and Grill. But that's a whole separate story. The thing is, though, it's some of these opportunities that come up are insane for kids who are, you know, just learning to perform, and it's so enriching, and it's so many cool stories that you can have in your life that people just shun, and it's disappointing. But I think I've harped enough on this, Matthew. I knew you had something else that you wanted to bring. We had number 2. That was number 1.
I'm going to.
So where's number 2 of 1?
Hold on. I'm going to try and sell this a little bit longer. Marching band. Marching band. You can have on countless amount of opportunities if you do it right and you push yourself. My marching band performed 3 times at Steelers games. On field at Heinz Field. Like, we were on the field. Not standing outside in the parking lot. Not just in the bleachers playing. No, we got to march on the field. Do our whole entire show, pregame and halftime. For the Steelers, 3 times. One of them was a playoff game. I've met Steelers because of it. A girl I was dating at the time, her mother still has his catching gloves from the 2006, 2005 season. Because we were at the game and he came down the field, scored a touchdown, turned around and saw her standing there with a sign and came running through the back of the end zone as they're raising the net for the field goal, took his catching gloves off of his hands and gave them to her. You don't always get opportunities like that. Just putting that out there.
And you see, that's for your parents out there, or, soon to be parents, or, maybe one day parents. Maybe you'll just sit there and just think about that one day. Or, maybe kids who are, thinking about doing the whole 16 and pregnant thing. Don't do that.
Don't do it.
Don't do that.
Don't.
But you know what? Maybe you're 16 and you're in high school and you're like, well, band seems cool, but I don't want to do that because I don't want to see them lame. Go do it. Especially if you like music, go do it, because all you're going to do is hang out with a whole bunch of kids who like music, and I guarantee those kids like more than just classical. They're not just classical music nerds that all they care about. There will be a few of those guys, but there's also tons of variety. Once again, I play hard rock, metal, and prog. That's what I do. But I mean, I also practice classical music. In college, they didn't actually have a guitar program, so I was actually a vocalist, and I practiced opera. I mean, that's you have to think about that for a second. That's stuff.
I don't see
practice.
You as an opera singer.
No more home.
I'm trying to picture you up on stage actually singing, and a pink tutu just keeps coming to mind, but
I think I
still don't
ballet.
think it fits.
That's ballet, sir.
I still don't. Well, no, I mean that's the only way I can picture you singing opera.
You're a special kind. So, like I said, where's number 2 here?
All right, so this
Who works for number 2?
So this is actually a few months old. I don't know why I did not see this or hear about it back in May. Roger Moore passed away. James Bond, number 1. Well, number 2. He took it from Sean Connery. I did not realize that until 2 days ago. Which I am very ashamed of myself because I am a huge Bond fan. I'm really upset that I did not know that. But like the past year and a half, 2 years has been going, we've lost a bunch of great names.
I mean, well, like I said, I mentioned 2 musicians earlier,
and that's
but
just
also
in the past few months.
There was there was the whole 2016, like, when is it going to end, because we lost so many. And honestly, I think part of it is we're hitting a point where a lot of the icons that we've held up for so long can't. I mean, to be fair, if you think about it, we haven't taken on very many icons as we've passed into the 2000, into this new millennium. There haven't been as many new risers. Like, we do have people who have become famous and kind of come in and out. Like, I mean, you have some of the newer people, but really the real icons, and I guess by its nature, they're going to be around for a long time. But at this point, though, we're starting to lose a lot of what we had built up from, like, the 70s and 80s, and it's hitting that point where they're at that age where they start dropping, and it's unfortunate, but
yeah, and I agree. I mean, there's some good actors, singers out there, but some of the people we've lost, there really isn't someone to step up and really take their place.
You see, here's the one thing I don't like to be that mentality. Here's the one thing we have to learn. Okay, so there, like, I'll pull a big one for that I know as a musician was we lost David Bowie. David Bowie, there's never going to be another David Bowie. But here's the thing, though. It doesn't mean that void isn't going to be filled in a different way. I hate whenever I hear this, like, the old-fashioned, well, my music was better in this day, and you know what, to a certain degree, yes it was, but to a certain degree, not necessarily so. There's still great musicians out there. There's still people making epic music. It's just not necessarily what we like, but there's also stuff that we like that we don't even know is out there. There are still great musicians out there, and those voids do get filled. You can't necessarily think that there's never going to be someone like that again. What do you think happened whenever Beethoven died? There's never gonna be, but
he died.
He died, but you know what? Then there was the next Beethoven of your time. There was the next Bach. There's always going to be a next one. So I don't like the whole, like, you can't just go in and say it's never going to happen again. It's just done. You're through. You're never going to get that again. That's not true. You will have people that fill those voids, but it doesn't diminish the fact that we lost someone great. But I don't like the whole, like, we're never gonna have them again, and that, we're lost to time. Yes, Matthew.
It looks like you have a nose itch.
You look like you have a whole face itch.
I kind of do. I have this little. I got these stubblies going on. So
I think we have Booster Seat here, who just can't.
HR's here.
HR is here. Is there any violations?
I touched him.
What have I told you about that?
Hey!
There might be when he gets his box in the mail.
What?
There may be a violation when he gets his box in the mail at the end of the week.
Is it your box of dildos?
I haven't decided yet, but there may be an extra present in there for him. Oh yeah, by the way.
I know, those are awesome.
Show her the other thing. As everyone else, tell us how much you want one of these. That tasted like
She
ramen.
really doesn't want one of those.
Oh.
So, that is all I have for today. Do you have
And
anything
as
for
we all
today?
know, I like to rant about things that Matt tells me to rant about. So I really don't have much things unless you guys want to hear a story about how I became a coffee maker. I'm sure you do.
No,
No.
we're done. We're done.
So,
No.
once again, we have now we're showing you a fancy shirt, an awesome mug. You know you guys want one. Tell us about it. Email us at infinitemindsradio@gmail.com.
Woohoo! You
Yeah!
didn't stutter this time. Yes,
That
progress.
is not a big hail. That's a power to the people. Not white power, not black power, but non-denominational power to everyone. Anyways, thank you for joining us at Infinite Minds Radio. Places where you need a bigger weed.
Until next time, guys.